Bienvenue dans le drama le plus... Ouais, on est le 17 janvier. Entre Villebrequin, Elon Musk Asmongold, Petit Chef, Gros Chef, les Voxmakers, qu'est-ce qui manquait dans le bingo? Emmanuel Macron et une journaliste américaine, Candace Owens. C'est quoi Emmanuel Macron qui menace juridiquement et pénalement une journaliste américaine parce qu'elle fait du journalisme. C'est quoi le truc de base? Candace Owens dit Brigitte Macron, pas plutôt Benjamin Macron, il aurait pas un petit drapeau comme ça là? C'est tout. Et Macron, il fait du Barbara Streisand et l'effet Streisand. Et je ne comprends pas pourquoi cette théorie du complot passionne autant, et je ne comprends pas pourquoi cette théorie complot n'est pas débunkée en claquant des doigts. Bref. Candice Owens a fait une vidéo d'une demi-heure où elle parle de la réception de cette plainte et des avocats d'Emmanuel Macron et de tout ce qu'elle a à peu près autour de Brigitte. C'est très intéressant. Et c'est sous-titré français, donc vous allez kiffer. Attention, please. Moi, ce que je comprends pas, c'est pourquoi... Déjà, le truc, c'est... Avant même de démarrer. Hein. Et même si c'était vrai, qu'est-ce que ça changerait? Alors après, ouais, on va pas se mentir. Hein. Quand tu la vois marcher, moi, là, quand je vois ça, quand je vois ça, moi, je vois Iman Khelif, en fait. Je vois pas une femme, mais bon. Elle est très masculine. Par contre, ce qui énerve les Américains, c'est le côté où il est sorti avec sa maîtresse alors qu'il avait que 15 ans. Ça, c'est un autre problème. Bref, on écoute Candace et on s'arrête de temps en temps.
Yesterday, I received a letter, and I would say that this letter plausibly changed the trajectory of this year, certainly for me. You know, I don't know why people keep sending me letters, and I am going to tell you that I received this letter from a...
Et évidemment, hein, merci à Géopolitique Profonde qui partage ça sur Twitter et qui a pris la peine de le sous-titrer.
Process server. Now, when you hear that you are getting a letter from a process server, you think one of two things in my world. You are being sued or you are being subpoenaed. It actually happens way more often than you realize. Sometimes you're being drafted into someone's lawsuit. They think that you have some information or some text messages, or otherwise you yourself are being sued, like when I was being sued by Kimberly Klacik for defamation, which eventually I won that after years. So it's not something that particularly unnerves me anymore, because typically sometimes you're getting drafted and there's no reason for you to be drafted. Your lawyer responds to it and it's completely over. But this one was indeed addressed to me. And what was strange about this is that when my lawyer was able to determine what it was and who it was from, this was atypical because it was not a lawsuit and it was not a subpoena, but it was a strongly worded letter. Essentially a legal threat. And people don't typically use process servers for legal threats. Even stranger was who it was coming from. It was coming from a law firm representing current sitting president, Emmanuel Macron, and his wife, Brigitte Macron.
Ce qui est fou, c'est que, avec tout ce qui se dit partout, Emmanuel Macron va se faire chier à envoyer une lettre à Candace Owens, qui est une journaliste américaine, entre guillemets, lambda, on va dire. Pourquoi il se ferait chier à ça?
Okay, like I said, this is insane.
Géopolitique Profonde, le journal pro-russe, pro-mensonge, etc. Quelle référence? On s'en bat des steaks. Candace Owens et ses sous-titrés. Ta gueule.
I don't think this has ever happened in
on s'en fout qu'il apporte le
history
truc.
of the world. Plausibly, you don't hear about a foreign leader currently sitting in power sending...
Toi, c'est toi, tu fais partie des mêmes mecs. Ouais, mais regarde, il y a un gars qui a poignardé quelqu'un. Il y a un rebeu. Ouais, mais regarde. C'est un journal d'extrême droite qui le dit. Tu vois pas le problème? Oui, mais enfin, c'est le gars qui s'est fait poignarder quand même. Ouais, non, c'est raciste. Vous êtes des psychopathes, les mecs. Hein.
Around legal letters to people that are sitting in other countries, no matter what that person is saying. But it's going to get so much more crazier than that, okay? Because there were a lot of odd things about this letter. First and foremost, they strenuously requested that I not publicize it. They did not.
Alors j'aime bien, c'est toujours pareil, hein. Il te menace légalement et il t'explique surtout ne rendez pas ça public. C'est tout en soum-soum, hein. Toujours tout en soum-soum. Et devant les caméras, ça fait les beaux. Bizarre.
Not want me to publicize this letter all over it. This is not meant to be publicly disseminated. Okay, you have no legal right to tell somebody that they can't share a letter that they received. I'm sorry you sent it. I have a right to share it. And I'm going to tell you my suspicion about why it came across as they wanted to keep this rather hush-hush. But hush-hush. But apart from asking me not to publicize it, they get into explaining to me how I am engaging in types of defamation. I'm going to show you this letter because the story behind it is even crazier, okay? So first and foremost, they are addressing statements, the bulk of this letter is addressing statements that I made last March. You're probably wondering in your head, why would they send this letter, which was addressed on December 3rd? That part is even crazier. But aside from telling me not to publicize it, they tell me right at the top that it's really none of my business whether or not Brigitte Macron is a man or a woman. Like,
et surtout, moi, ce que j'ai encore dit, qu'est-ce qu'ils s'en foutent de ce qui se dit par une journaliste américaine et tout, à part faire un effet Streisand, un buzz. Parce qu'ils peuvent pas être... Macron, il peut pas être neuneux à ce point-là. Il sait bien que une journaliste un peu acharnée, polémiste sur tous ces trucs-là, si tu lui envoies un truc, elle va forcément en parler. Il aurait rien dit. Elle serait passée à autre chose.
she doesn't have to answer that question. Here's what it said. I'm going to read you.
Elle parle longtemps, c'est une femme, donc il y a un petit moment.
This verbatim. It said, this disinformation campaign is almost entirely based on a negative. Mrs. Macron has not provided definitive proof that she is a woman. Therefore, she must be a man. Not only is this an inherently unreliable basis for a claim, but also, and this is in bold, Mrs. Macron does not owe you proof that she is and always has been a woman, because frankly, it is none of your business. It is arrogant, self-centered, and truly offensive to believe that you are owed evidence of another's sex, gender identity, or sexual orientation. And additionally, it is defamatory to call someone a liar when they rightfully choose not to give in to your demands. Then it says, make no mistake, there is no shame in being LGBTQ+.
Écoutez ce passage, il est quand même fou, hein, ce passage. Écoutez ce passage. T'as l'impression que il donne tout pour alimenter la théorie du complot plutôt que de l'éteindre. Moi, ce que je comprends pas dans cette histoire, c'est Brigitte Macron, elle n'est pas si âgée que ça, avec tout le respect que je lui dois. Ça existait les appareils photo à son époque, même quand elle était petite, je pense. Il y avait des daguerreotypes, j'en sais rien, quelque chose. Il y a bien des traces. Peut-être les vidéos n'étaient pas encore inventées, mais il y avait des photos, il y avait des peintures, j'en sais rien. Au-delà de ça, elle a une fille. Elle vient d'où, la fille? Elle a une fille. Au bout d'un moment, c'était un mec. Comment ça marche avec sa fille? On lui demande pas d'enlever sa culotte non plus. Mais comment c'est possible qu'on n'arrive pas juste à dire non mais elle était enseignante là. Là, il y a toute sa classe d'anciens élèves. Elle a fait ci, elle a fait ça. Il y a son acte de naissance, j'en sais rien. Non, la seule réponse que Macron apporte à ça, c'est ça.
She is a woman, therefore she must be a man. Not only is this an inherently unreliable basis for a claim, but also, and this is in bold, Mrs. Macron does not owe you proof that she is and always has been a woman, because
il y a zéro photo d'elle enceinte. Bah ça, c'est pas grave. Moi, j'ai aucune photo de ma première fille. J'ai des photos de ma femme enceinte. Ma deuxième fille, j'ai pas de photo de ma femme enceinte quasiment. Ah, c'est pas ouf. C'est pas ouf. Mais t'as des actes de naissance, t'as des trucs.
Frankly, it is none of your business. It is arrogant, self-centered, and truly offensive to believe that you are owed evidence of another's sex, gender identity, or sexual orientation. And additionally, it is defamatory to call someone a liar when they rightfully choose not to give in to your demands. Then it says, make no mistake, there is no shame in being...
Et après, il rajoute, il n'y a aucune honte à être LGBTQ+. Pourquoi il ajoute ça? Brigitte Macron, elle est LGBTQ+. Ouais, plus tu creuses là-dedans, plus c'est le bordel. Je veux dire, monsieur Macron, au lieu d'avoir l'autre pignouf de Bellatar en conseiller, prenez-moi en conseiller stratégique, dramatologique. Que là... Bon, bah.
LGBTQ+, but your accusations go beyond that. Okay, so right at the top there, again, what I've said to you that always struck me as odd about this story is this has been going on for approximately 10 years, okay? Now, if I'm the president and I'm dealing with a 10-year issue of people saying that my wife has a penis and I could just very easily debunk this, I'm sure as hell not going to pay lawyers overseas to send legal threats and legal letters that say, oh, okay, well, we're not going to answer the question, but we are going to send you a 100-page letter.
Elle a reçu une lettre de 100 pages. 100 pages. Alors que, bon, on va pas lui demander d'enlever sa culotte, mais encore une fois, acte de naissance, photo, peinture, j'en sais rien. Sa femme, ses enfants, enfin sa femme, sa fille, je veux dire, ses enfants, elle était maîtresse d'école. Il y a bien des dizaines et des dizaines d'élèves qui l'ont connue. C'est obligé. Personnel administratif de l'école, quelque chose. On dirait que c'est un secret d'État, on dirait Mazarine. Pour ceux qui ont connu la référence de la fille de Mitterrand. Ça devient ridicule au bout d'un moment. Et le mari de Brigitte, parce qu'elle a bien divorcé avant d'être avec Macron, il est où? Cette histoire n'a aucun putain de sens. Et monter en tête d'épingle une histoire aussi débile, je comprends pas. Je comprends toujours pas.
It was 100 pages. Most of it was transcript. It really was like a 33-page letter. Most of it was transcript again. But the point being is that's a lot of effort for something that can be so easily debunked. So easily debunked. And I'm not the only journalist who've done this too. Okay. They're sending out letters, civil harassment, saying that it's causing them stress, it's causing them anxiety. Wouldn't you just answer the question at a certain point? Again, going with common sense. But it gets even more interesting. They also write in this letter that what they believe to be defamatory, among other things, is really just the implication to the French people that they're fraudulent and that they lie. So let me read that piece of this to you as well in this letter that I'm not supposed to publicize at all. These allegations are defamatory for multiple reasons. At the outset, it must be clear that there is nothing defamatory or reputationally damaging about being transgendered. But what is defamatory and highly damaging is attacking.
Et il rajoute une couche en disant ce que vous dites, c'est diffamatoire et nuisible, alors qu'il n'y a aucun problème à être une personne trans. Mais il fait du wokisme, mais pourquoi il ramène cette question sur le tapis pour défendre que sa femme est bien une femme?
The integrity and the credibility of a president. I was like, I'm sorry, I just have to chuckle at that in general because I'm just thinking about
C'est comme si tu vois un gay, un refoulé qui ose pas s'avouer qu'il est gay. Tu lui dis, t'es gay? Non, je suis pas gay. Mais tu sais, il y a pas de mal à être gay. Hein. À part convaincre et donner du grain à moudre à Candace, qu'elle est dans son bon droit et qu'elle est en train de tout titiller un truc et lui donner encore plus d'énergie, je comprends pas la stratégie.
President Trump and all the attacks. Like, what's defamatory is attacking the idea that Biden lies or that President Trump lies. You're not allowed to question their integrity in France. Like, this is just such a European letter in the sense that, like...
Ah oui, non, en France, par contre, on n'a pas de liberté. Aux États-Unis, ils ont la liberté d'expression. En France, on n'a pas de liberté d'expression. En France,
They have no idea what free speech actually means.
La liberté d'expression, c'est seulement si c'est dans leur sens. Sinon, oulala.
A president and Mrs. Macron with this vicious rumor that they are lying and manipulating the French people. One you knew was false at the time of publication. Okay, obviously, I do not think this is false at all. I'm going to tell you even more why I insist that there is a lot to the story. But just writing that seems very strange to me. They go on to speak about how the only proof that we have, which is completely untrue, is Chinese software that is comparing the faces of her and her alleged brother that doesn't like to make any appearances, which could easily just debunk this, right? And they're like, this is like crap, saying that they look alike. All siblings do look alike, or some siblings can look exactly alike. They say that that's completely normal. And then they provide even more proof that it's obvious that Brigitte is not a man. And the proof is that Brigitte says she's not a man. I'm not kidding. Here, this is the actual language of a letter. They write, beyond this, your conspiracy theory hinges on Mrs. Macron's family refusing to subject themselves to public scrutiny. Oh, okay, you guys. So the reason that they're not answering this or responding to this is because they don't need to be publicly scrutinized. Like, why would a president and a first lady have to be publicly?
Une des grosses théories du complot, c'est que le frère de Brigitte Macron, en fait, c'est Brigitte Macron. Tellement loin. Ah, tellement loin. Et encore une fois, un, c'est ridicule. Et deux, même si c'était le cas, ça serait quoi le truc? Franchement, pour moi, cette théorie du complot, elle est à la même échelle que qu'il y a un mur de glace autour de la Terre, tu sais, il y a des militaires qui protègent le mur de glace. Je comprends, même si c'était vrai, c'est quoi le but? Ça changerait quoi? Enfin, c'est...
scrutinized. That just doesn't come with the territory when you live in a
Et que Macron rebondisse là-dessus.
Place like Europe and you don't have free speech. They can just hush you and sue you for speaking. Like I said, they are in for a rude awakening. This is America. And the next line really...
C'est rigolo, hein, parce qu'il dit on pourrait vous attaquer en justice pour ça. Gros, on est aux États-Unis. Aux États-Unis, on a le droit de parler. D'émettre des opinions, des avis, des idées, même si ça ne te convient pas. En Europe, c'est plus compliqué. En Europe, c'est beaucoup plus compliqué. On n'a pas le droit de parler.
Gets me because they say what should be enough evidence to disprove these falsehoods.
Oui, pourtant, il y a une photo de Brigitte avec son frère Macron qui est arrivé à l'Élysée. Tout ce bordel, c'est incompréhensible.
Falsehoods is that Mrs. Macron has denied them. President Macron has denied them, and Mrs. Macron's daughter, Tifone, has denied them. Okay, so that's how it works now in the court of law, guys. If I say no...
Voilà. Ça, c'est un vrai problème. Voilà, le techno, c'est ça le vrai problème. C'est que normalement, c'est du détournement de mineurs.
Absent any proof, you need to just accept that's the truth. Everybody always tells the truth all the time, especially in politics. Haven't we learned that? Nobody ever lies in politics. If they say something, it's definitely true. Trust me, bro. It's basically trust me, bro.
Trust me, bro. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 n'est pas woke. Trust me, bro. C'est un peu ça. Hein.
Then it just gets even more bizarre because they're referring to T-shirts as a form of yellow journalism. So I sold this T-shirt mocking Brigitte Macron. It was a fake Time magazine cover and it said Man of the Year. And they view that as a form of yellow journalism. And that's...
Alors, je savais pas qu'il disait yellow journalism pour presse à scandale.
Interesting.
Donc de vendre des t-shirts avec la tête de Brigitte Macron en disant homme de l'année, c'est de la presse à scandale. C'est juste des t-shirts. Avec un peu rigolo avec un mème quoi dessus.
That portion right now, it says, since then you have continued to knowingly and intentionally peddle yellow journalism, defaming the Macrons. Indeed, you released another episode mentioning the conspiracy on June 26th. And then it says on July 7th, you brought these lies to the Jimmy Dore show. On July 8th, you again posted on X, this time with a photo of yourself in a t-shirt showcasing a fake Time magazine Man of the Year cover featuring Mrs. Macron, which has received 832,000 views. And...
Ouais, c'est pas bête, mais Guido, hein. Pour moi, il fait exprès, ça sert de diversion pour moi, mettre en avant d'autres problèmes. C'est pas bête, c'est vrai que c'est pas bête.
3,000 retweets. And they actually put a picture of me wearing the shirt in this legal letter. And I wrote, I'm calling it now Time Man of the Year.
Juste de
l'humour. Incredible shirt. Obviously, we now need to get this back up on sale. I don't know what is actionable in a parody shirt.
Ça veut dire qu'on n'a même plus le droit à la parodie. On n'a même plus le droit à l'humour en Europe. Même balèze.
Not sure where they're going with that, but they wanted to mention in a very strongly worded letter that this is a form of...
On est dans une dictature de la liberté d'expression quasiment pire qu'en Russie. C'est un truc de ouf.
Yellow journalism, because there's obviously...
J'abuse peut-être un peu, mais on s'y rapproche très rapidement.
Never been any t-shirts made about President Trump or Biden. You can't do that anymore. You're not allowed to sell Make Kamala Indian hats. Literally, what on earth were they thinking, including that? Okay. But here's where it gets really interesting. Okay. Then they insist on explaining to me that calling someone a rapist in France, they have different laws. And they insist that it's not statutory rape because Emmanuel was or would have been 15. They heavily imply this. This is the exact verbiage from the letter.
Alors donc là, il parle du coup sur le fait qu'il ait eu 15 ans quand il a rencontré Brigitte. Enfin, quand il était dans la classe de Brigitte.
It reads, Mrs. Macron did not statutorily rape President Macron. Let us be clear that the age of consent in France is 15. The two met and fell in love in 1993 when she was a drama teacher and he was 15 years old.
Donc, apparemment, elle avait 29 ans et... c'est ça? Non. Elle avait 15 ans. Macron, on sait pas... Brigitte, on sait pas quel âge elle avait. Je sais pas préciser. Et oui, 15 ans, pas de la pédophilie. C'est en dessous, la pédophilie. Donc, ça, déjà, ça retire la question de la pédophilie. Mais c'est du détournement de mineurs. Clairement. Parce qu'elle a un ascendant sur lui, c'est sa maîtresse d'école. Donc c'est vraiment un détournement de mineurs. Normalement, c'est la justice qui doit s'en servir, et pas devenir président.
When President Macron was 17, he vowed to marry Mrs. Macron, following through with his promise. They wed in 2007. When President Macron...
Et le pauvre mari de Brigitte Macron, qui voit sa femme se faire voler par un écolier de 15 ans,
was 29 years old. Now, I want to first let you guys know that this is stunning because all throughout the time that President Macron was running, their story was that he was 17 years old, okay? Now we have here writing that they're now adjusting that. All the publications said, oh, he was 17, it makes him sound like he's almost legal. And she was, however, I think they said she was 34.
34 ans,
and one of the things that we told you was that this whole legend that they created in the legacy media was dishonest. And they allowed this to go on and go on until people started looking, independent journalists, and going, wait a second, Emmanuel Macron was not 15. And I also believe there's an interview where Emmanuel Macron states that he met her before he was 15 years old. But them implying that the age of consent in France is 15 is actually wholesale dishonesty, because what they're leaving out is the age of consent at that time when they were together. It was 15 only if the person that they had the affair with, the sexual affair with, was not someone who had any power or control. That is still the law in France today, okay? So in order for it to be age of consent, it cannot be a teacher, it cannot be a therapist, it cannot be any person when you are a minor that has...
Vous pouvez rajouter là-dedans les influenceurs, youtubeurs, créateurs de contenu. Hein. Ils ont un ascendant sur les abonnés. C'est du détournement de mineurs, même si elle est consentante.
Control over you. And as they mentioned in that same paragraph, Emmanuel Macron was the student of Brigitte Macron.
Et non, 15 ans, c'est pas pédo. Selon la loi. Moralement, c'est compliqué. Ah, voilà. Mais la majorité sexuelle est à 15 ans. Donc, c'est pas pédo.
So that would not have been allowed under the law. And this is something that we are happy to debate. In America, this would be statutory rape one way or the other. And in France, I'm pretty sure that still constitutes statutory rape. But we will allow you to respond to that in a more thorough manner, because now that we've established a connection, you have no excuse not to answer our pointed questions. We're going to go on and show you a little bit more of this letter, because this, to me, was the craziest part of the entire thing. So after saying, we don't have to tell you any proof, we don't have to show you any proof, trust me, bro. They then try to say that there have been some journalists that have introduced some evidence and you should have been paying attention in the form of, I'm not kidding.
Oui, de moins de 15 ans. De moins de 15 ans, c'est de la pédophilie. Et au-dessus, non. Légalement, je te parle légalement. Moralement, c'est une autre histoire.
This is coming from the president of France. They have submitted to us screenshots of an 8-year-old video that they allege proves that Jean-Michel Trogneau, so the theory is that Brigitte lived as Jean-Michel Trogneau, then took on the name of a sister named Brigitte and became Brigitte Trogneau later on in life. Okay, that is the theory. They are now saying that this journalist noticed that in the background of Emmanuel Macron's inauguration, the real Jean-Michel Trogneau was there. They sent us a YouTube link, I'm not kidding, of 2 different instances, and they claim that in the background, you see this little fat man? I'm showing you, this is actually from a legal letter right here.
C'est pareil, c'est quoi cette preuve en carton? Genre, si, regardez, c'est lui. C'est bien la preuve. Regardez, on l'a encadré en rouge, c'est lui. D'accord, mais la preuve que c'est vraiment lui, de sa carte d'identité, son extrait de naissance, son nom. Bon, tu peux prendre n'importe qui dans la rue, tu l'entoures en rouge, c'est lui. Et c'est là que tu dis, c'est les avocats d'Emmanuel Macron qui ont fait ce papier et qui sont sûrs d'eux comme ça. En fait, on n'a que des branquignoles, en fait, c'est pas possible.
They say that's Jean-Michel Trogneau. That's proof. Look, it's a still. They then sent us a YouTube link from the inauguration. And in the background, they're like, see, in the background, that's Jean-Michel Trogneau. We swear that's him. Hello, you are the alleged first lady, first man of France, and Emmanuel Macron. You're telling me this is the evidence that you are supplying to journalists that this person exists? A link to a YouTube video that I'm going to show you right now. This is the link to the video. This is it, guys. This is proof.
Dans ces instants où tout...
Oh, was that not enough evidence for you to leave this entire theory alone? Like, they're not making a statement, but you should have caught in the background there. Here, we'll circle it for you. That's the real Jean-Michel Trogneau that they just won't do a press conference with and allow people to know where this person works, where this person exists. You should just know that right there debunks everything, because this channel, Edition Speciale, captured that in the background, and they said, a journalist said that's definitely, some journalists said that's definitely him. So we're ignoring all the journalists who are saying that's not, and we have a name for that person that's in the background. I'm not going to tell you that today, but that's it. They sent this via a huge law firm as proof that the real Jean-Michel Trogneau does exist. The lingering man in the background, link on a YouTube video that's 8 years old. Shocking. They're also upset that we here in America felt the Olympics ceremony was satanic. I'm not allowed to say that.
Ils sont énervés parce qu'ils ont osé dire, les Américains, que la cérémonie d'ouverture des Jeux Olympiques était satanique et anti-chrétienne. Qui était le cas.
This is Europe. You don't have free speech. You can't say that the Olympics ceremony.
Mais c'est vrai qu'en Europe, on n'a pas le droit de le dire. En Europe, tous les journalistes et tous les gens qui disaient ça étaient très très vite... un petit coup derrière les genoux. Tu vas te mettre au sol, t'as pas le droit de dire ça. Elle était très bien, la cérémonie d'ouverture.
Ceremony was very clearly satanic. Here I am saying it again. Wait till they find out that you don't get to tell a Christian what is and is not satanic because you are the president of France. You just don't get the right to do that. They wrote this in the letter. This is real. You pressed these lies harder after the Olympics opening ceremony in Paris. On July 29th, you released another episode titled The Olympics Exposed Brigitte Macron. As you know, the 2024 Olympics opening ceremony was widely misinterpreted as a reenactment of a Last Supper, but it was intended to represent the feast of Dionysus.
Et ils osent partir sur cette vieille excuse de c'était pas la scène, c'était le festin de Dionysos. Ils osent sortir cette excuse de merde qui a été débunkée tellement de fois, parce que je vous rappelle que le festin de Dionysos, c'est un remake de la scène. Donc en fait, dire l'un ou l'autre, c'est pareil. Et ils l'ont avoué, l'autre là, Thomas Joly et les autres, et les participants, que c'était là pour choquer, pour faire chier, pour faire avancer le côté LGBT, la diversité, l'équité, l'inclusion. Et je vous rappelle qu'il y avait un mec quasiment à poil qui stripteasait à côté d'une gamine de 12-13 ans. Magnifique. Bref.
Nonetheless,
on va pas revenir dessus, on a fait plein de vidéos sur les Jeux Olympiques.
Claimed that the satanic Olympic ceremony was really a ceremony to honor Brigitte Macron because she's transgendered. You posted on X that Brigitte is a transvestite and called it a demonic state. Now, this gets into them now drafting in Archbishop Vigano because they're talking about me retweeting Archbishop Vigano. Take a look at this. It is telling that you retweeted a statement by Archbishop Vigano, a man who had just been excommunicated from the Catholic Church for his denial of the legitimacy of Pope Francis and other crimes of schism. And it is
oui, Thomas Joly veut travailler dans le jeu vidéo. Dégage du jeu vidéo. C'est honteux.
Archbishop Vigano explicitly calling Brigitte Macron transvestite. Now, to my knowledge, Archbishop Vigano has not received a letter threatening him. Isn't that strange? Called him a transvestite, has not received a letter at all threatening him. And I will tell you why that is. Of course, in every letter that people send, there has to be an honorable mention of the Tate brothers because they're always relevant. And then they wrote this, which is very strange. They don't include the language here. Your disinformation campaign included the Tate brothers, a pair of grossly self-proclaimed misogynists that are charged with human trafficking. I'm going to show you how
Alors,
rich
qu'est-ce qu'ils
that
viennent foutre les Tate Brothers là-dedans? Il manque un point dans le puzzle. Là.
irony is in a second. On August 14th, you hosted Tristan Tate on Candace and discussed these claims. And the following day, on August 15th, you hosted his brother Andrew Tate. In the August 15th episode, you and Andrew reiterated your claims that the Macrons are dishonest, implied the French election was rigged like the 2020 U.S. election. Now, I know I certainly didn't imply the French
C'est intéressant. Ça va loin. Hein. Ça va vraiment loin. Hein.
French election was rigged, because I don't follow French politics. I'm following the story because it's massive. And the way that you are acting in trying to play whack-a-mole with every person that looks into the story and recognizes that there's something here strikes me as odd. Also, asking me not to publish the letter strikes me as odd. And lastly, to the point of saying that us implying that you guys are dishonest, I don't even know, are you out of your mind? Are you out of your mind thinking that people can't imply that a president and his wife are dishonest? Or is it really that...
Ouais, on n'a même plus le droit de dire qu'il serait malhonnête. On en est là. On en est là. Si tu accueilles quelqu'un en discussion, il dit « Ah, il est quand même malhonnête, ce mec. » Je vais l'attaquer en justice. Tu n'as même plus le droit de donner ton avis, ton opinion sur les sujets. On est pire qu'en Russie, au final. Hein. On est vraiment pire qu'en Russie.
That bad in France? Is it so, like, are you just deluded out of your mind for me to say that I believe that you and your wife lie? It's almost a requirement to be in politics that you have to lie. You literally have to almost lie
Tu n'as même pas le droit de dire qu'il mente. C'est ouf.
to become a president of France or the president of any place in the entire world. What is this letter?
Si c'est pédo, c'est quand t'as 40 ans, tu es con ou quoi? Ouais. Tu devrais check sur toi avant. En termes de QI déjà.
Actually about? Well, you guys might be wondering about now about the timing of this letter, because again, the referencing posts from June, primarily an episode that I posted in March upon a different platform. They have not drafted that platform into this complaint whatsoever. So it's targeting me at least 6 months after the last time that I've spoken about Emmanuel Macron. The story I'm going to tell you is insane. Absolutely insane. Hang on one second. We're going to throw it to some advertisers, and then I'll tell you why I believe they really sent this letter.
Pourquoi ils ont envoyé
So
cette
what
lettre?
is this actually about? Why are they sending this letter now? Like I said, the story I'm going to tell you, it's stranger than fiction, okay? It is my belief that the Macrons somehow became aware that we are just a couple of weeks away from releasing an explosive piece on Brigitte Macron. And I believe that this letter was sent to intimidate me. I don't believe that they intended to file anything.
Ce qui est fou en plus, si c'est vraiment pour l'intimider, pour éviter de sortir cet article, ça lui donne tous les pouvoirs pour qu'elle force encore plus sur cet article en fait. Et ça lui donne l'impression qu'elle est qu'elle a raison et qu'il faut continuer. C'est incompréhensible leur truc.
I could be wrong. My instinct here is that it was very much meant to terrify me because of an interview that I did that they are worried that when I release is going to go global, because it will. The backstory of that is that during Thanksgiving week, at the end of November, I was contacted by a French reporter claiming to have a trove of evidence to support the claim that the First Lady of France lived as a man named Jean-Michel Trogneau before becoming and transitioning to Brigitte. This evidence was...
Encore une fois, c'est ce truc. Mais du coup, sa fille, elle vient d'où? À Brigitte Macron. Si c'était un mec avant. Elle vient d'où, la fille de Brigitte Macron? Elle a bien un acte de naissance. Faut arrêter les conneries au bout d'un moment.
Even complete with names of doctors who worked on Brigitte, a theory with a lot of evidence as to who mothered the children, who gave birth to Brigitte's children. Because I took this individual to be extremely credible, I got on a plane and I flew to meet this journalist in Europe, okay? We did an interview that went on for about 2 hours on camera, and I collected all of his evidence. And apparently, just 10 days after that initial correspondence between me and that journalist, Emmanuel and Brigitte had this letter written to me. It is dated December 3rd. So just 10 days. So
Oh, j'y crois pas trop à l'adoption, parce qu'elle lui ressemble beaucoup quand même, sa fille, à Brigitte Macron. Elle lui ressemble quand même énormément.
that, to me, leads me to believe that somehow, and again, I have no evidence to support this claim, the communications of this journalist are being monitored. That they knew that he was flying to meet me, that they knew that we conducted the interview, and that they knew that I was in communication with him, telling him that the interview was due to release in 2 weeks, okay? They knew that it was coming out this month and that they scrambled to get this out, to beef up this letter as much as possible, running the risk that, okay, well, getting a letter from the president of France is a scary thing. You know how much power he has. She'll at least press pause and not release the conversation, hoping that I would just be scared into silence if they beefed up the letter.
La fille de Jean-Michel. Oh, genre, c'est la fille de quand... Donc en fait, Brigitte Macron serait son père. Oh j'ai hâte de voir... j'ai hâte de voir ce nouveau reportage. Oh,
letter with scary mentions, which they did, by the way. The bottom of a letter, they told me
11h24, ouais, je
about
sais.
Tucker Carlson
Il
and
reste 10 minutes, je vais
Dominion.
être un peu en
I'm
retard.
paraphrasing here. They mentioned Tucker Carlson and Dominion as a lawsuit. Billions of dollars you could lose, Candace, if you cover this story. First and foremost, what are you talking about? You're comparing apples and lean cuisines, frozen meals at this point. You are a sitting president, okay? You are not above reproach, you are not above critique, and I am certainly allowed to look into you and your life and to ask questions, okay? You don't get to compare that to a private company who is saying that they have real-world loss because people no longer trust their technology. Again, that was mentioned only to try to terrify me, I believe, because they know that we're working on this piece and they know that we have the pictures that we have, which tell a very different story from what the media has been trying to tell people. I believe that this proves what their strategy is. Brigitte and Emmanuel Macron, as they expressed in this letter, say nothing. They give nothing about whether or not Brigitte is transgender. They don't address the claims while they go on. And then they wait for journalists to make a mistake. This is what they did to 2 other journalists that were in France. They sued them and they lied to the public about what was at the nucleus of the lawsuit, right? Wait for you to say, she's transgendered, she was Jean-Michel Trogneau, she changed. And then if you misspeak about something, as one of the journalists did and said, I think the birth certificate's fake, they sue you for that, for defamation. And they go, actually, that birth certificate wasn't fake. But they're not actually attacking the substance of the debate, whether or not Brigitte, in the current form, transitioned from a man named Jean-Michel Trogneau. They will not address these claims.
C'était trop rigolo, je me souviens d'un clip où t'as l'autre là, Pierre-Jean Chalençon, sur le plateau télé pour parler de Brigitte Macron, qui dit oui, Jean-Michel Brigitte Macron. Ce passage était tellement incroyable. Est-ce que je peux le trouver rapidement? Attends. Si je mets Chalençon. Chalençon, Trogneau.
Votre coup de gueule du moment?
C'est le coup de gueule concernant Brigitte Macron, parce que là, j'ai trouvé que c'est vraiment, ça me fait de la peine. C'est une...
C'est incroyable. C'est incroyable.
Actually, despite sending these spurious articles and screenshots from a video from 7 or 8 years ago, they themselves say, we don't have to answer or produce any evidence whatsoever. So in terms of my issue, or their issue with me rather, they pounced on a mistake that I did make. By the way, they're not wrong, because after sitting down with this journalist and receiving the trove of evidence, they are correct that I wrongly identified at that time. And again, I was relying on a ton of reports, and I was clear that this was not my report, but rather what was going on in France. People were trying to answer the question of, okay, well, if Brigitte Macron did not give birth to those children, who did? And I wrongly named someone, which was being alleged at that time, named Brigitte Proba Ozier. Again, I was just reiterating what the journalists were saying at that time. And I learned from this journalist, who is entirely credible and has been working on this story for 8 years, that that is not accurate. And so that's what you're looking for, Brigitte, right? An apology for that, which you say is defamatory, for alleging that Brigitte Ozier fathered these or gave birth to these children, Brigitte Proba Ozier. You are correct. I'm not only just going to correct it
Alors attends,
here,
c'est quoi Brigitte Ozière? C'est quoi? C'est son nom de jeune fille?
I'm going to correct it in the long piece that I am working on
Ou le nom
about
avec son
your
ancien mari?
background that I still intend to release in 2 weeks. So
Oh, ça tease, hein,
don't
par
you
contre.
worry.
Hein.
Any mistakes that I made, these little things that you're trying to catch on to because you don't want to address the substance of what people are presenting, which is whether or not you transitioned from Jean-Michel Trogneau to Brigitte. Any of the mistakes I made, I will fully correct on the record. And guess what? I now can do it in a way that's better than ever because thankfully you have now reached out to me via your legal firm, which means that we now have a direct line of communication. And I'm going to send you pointed questions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you can now answer those questions or you can decline to answer those questions. And if you decline to answer those questions, as you have done, well, then you can't prove here that there's any actual malice because there isn't. I genuinely want to understand what the hell I am looking at throughout this trove of evidence. The people that have been involved in this, it is, like I said, the most explosive story ever. And what is interesting is that the reason you're going after me is because the only reason this story was contained for so long was because all of it was happening in France. Most of the people in the Western world can speak and understand English, which allows them to then look at the story in a different way. But when it was just in French reporters that were reporting on it, you were able to stifle that discussion. No more.
Et ça, c'est vrai. Hein. Le musellement des journalismes français est avéré. D'ailleurs, c'est pour ça qu'ils veulent tous quitter X, qu'ils parlent de toxicité, de tout ça, de liberté d'expression. Ils sont tous muselés, les couilles en étau. Il reste encore quelques petits journalistes, mais il n'en reste plus beaucoup. Hein. Je parle de journalistes en tant que journalistes de médias traditionnels. Des journalistes 2.0, comme moi ou d'autres, il y en a plein. Mais les journalistes de base qui sont dominés et contrôlés par le gouvernement et qui ne sont plus que des marionnettes et des perroquets du gouvernement, c'est là que tu dis la liberté d'expression, la liberté de penser différemment, elle n'existe plus en France et en Europe.
I want to let you know that I'm not intimidated whatsoever. In fact, you have piqued my interest even further. And I want you to know that I'm looking into all of your friends, all of these instances of pedophilia, people that were involved. I mean, the English people don't even know about the Olivier Duhamel scandal, the scandal of another 14-year-old, a person that supported you, a person that you were in a lot of communication with, who...
Il me semble qu'on en avait parlé d'Olivier Duhamel, mais il y a longtemps.
Had a daughter, a stepdaughter, come out and say that she was abused and that she was invited to elite, that her brother was abused, rather, let me correct that her twin brother was abused by...
Et c'est pareil, il y a une affaire qui a été totalement étouffée très très vite. Hein. Très vite.
Olivier Duhamel, which is...
Par contre, attention, Arthur a fait une blague sur un Chinois il y a 18 ans. Là, c'est scandaleux. Hein. Là, oulala, faut revenir dessus.
I fact-checked that online, and that appears to be a massive story in France, one that Le Monde, which is like the French New York Times, has been covering as something that you were quite worried about. That the Élysée Palace, quote, this is from Le Monde, ever since the Olivier Duhamel affair broke in early January, Emmanuel Macron has been monitoring each development like milk on the stove, reported Le Monde at the time. Incest with his stepson, Duhamel's stepson, age 13 or 14. A lot of characters in your circle. Elizabeth Guigou, Hubert Vadrine, Daniel Cohn-Bendit. These statements that are made about them, Jean-Marc Borrello. There have been a lot of sexual incidences that have surrounded your presidency that the English-speaking people, the English-speaking world does not know about. And all of these have been submitted to me, and I am deeply understanding this scandal.
Le Monde au New York Times quand même. Bah, en termes de notoriété, tu dois faire une comparaison. C'est quoi le journal le plus célèbre en France? Vas-y, comme ça, sans réfléchir. Le Monde? Le Figaro? Le Parisien?
And I am deeply appreciating why it is that a president of a foreign country would take this time to try to get me to shut up, because you've done a very good job of containing all this. But I don't know if nobody told you this. I'm pregnant, right? When I get pregnant and people threaten me, I don't take very kindly to those sorts of threats. So this is going to get extremely interesting, and I will give you guys, my listeners, my idea of what I think is going to happen right after one more message from our sponsors. So maybe Brigitte and Emmanuel Macron will file this lawsuit in the state of Tennessee. Maybe they will. And maybe in their mind, first off, they definitely didn't expect me to show this letter. I'll tell you that much. That's not something that most people would do. Most people would consult their lawyers and stay quiet about stuff. I don't take kindly to threats. I don't like threats, okay? I didn't get to where I am in life, come from absolutely nothing, to have some elite people threaten me into silence because I am exposed.
Je déteste les menaces, pareil. Les gens qui me disent, ah, surtout, je te dis ça, mais t'en parles pas. Hein, Si t'en parles, je déteste ça.
Exposing what I deem to be the truth, okay? Least of all when it's from a foreign nation that doesn't appreciate free speech or thinks that they can.
Le nombre de personnes qui disent, ouais, regarde, je t'envoie ça, mais surtout, n'en parle pas et dis pas que c'est moi qui t'ai donné l'information. Bah, ta gueule alors. Ta gueule.
Boss me around and tell me what is not satanic and how I must report upon their Olympics. Doesn't really work like that, okay? It just doesn't work like that at all. I think what's going to happen is that they were banking on me being silent. They realized that is not happening. They are probably banking on their money, and they are probably banking on their power to somehow further stifle this situation, try to bank on, I don't know, trying to silence me in court in America. Good luck, buddy. Good luck trying to make that happen. Good luck trying to make the piece that we are working on, which is still due to be released in 2 weeks, and it's not going to come out on YouTube. I now think that you had something to do with the very bizarre videos that were taken down, 3 videos in which you have named in this legal letter, which made no sense at the time when they were being taken down, because you were worried about the information that we were revealing. Well, you should know that when we drop this series that we're working on about the Brigitte Macron scandal, it is not going to be on YouTube. You will have no power here, okay?
D'ailleurs, en parlant de ça, Google, on l'avait vu dans la précédente vidéo, Google annonce aussi qu'elle arrêtera les fact-checkers et le fact-checking sur YouTube. Mais du coup, est-ce que du coup, elle continuera de supprimer les vidéos de ce style-là sur YouTube? Ou elle laissera la liberté d'expression?
It will be released on my website, CandaceOwens.com, and people will be able to watch it, whether they want to watch it in French or they want to watch it in English. You're banking on power structures. I'm banking on the people. Because you see, Mr. Macron, both of you, both misters.
C'est une petite troll. Hein.
In my world, I bank on the people. When I get an itch about something or an instinct about something, and people start thinking that the American people and the French people around the world are not going to win, I always bank on the regular people. You have no idea the army that we can unleash here of people that will investigate, that will look into things. Ask Kamala, friend there, ask Kamala what it was like when she went through the Kamala Chronicles. We will definitely, once the mothers here in America understand what is happening in France, inspire them, just mothers wanting to protect children, to look further into these claims and wonder what the hell is going on in France. And like I said, it will be an investigative army of regular people, okay? So I get it. You feel really protected by the state and you can send these sorts of things, but I think you're making the wrong bet here. We'll see what happens. Like I said, the piece is still due to come out in 2 weeks. And I bet, given the letter that you just sent me, the timing of that letter being particularly suspicious after all this time, that what we release will have more eyes than anything that we've ever released in the history of this show. So I bid you farewell, Mr. and Mr.
C'est incroyable, hein. Je suis vraiment très très curieux de la suite de ce que ça va donner tout ça. Bref, et vous, qu'est-ce que vous en pensez de cette histoire? Les commentaires sont là.